Hey there, everyone. Welcome back to English as a Second Language. I'm David, and it's always such a pleasure to have you here with me. You know, I was just thinking about how much learning has changed in the past few years, and I'm excited to dive into today's topic with you. We're continuing our IELTS series today, and I have to say, this is one of those topics that really affects all of us. Today, we're exploring traditional classroom versus online learning. Which is better? This is actually a very common topic that comes up in IELTS speaking and writing tasks. So understanding different perspectives on this will definitely help you in your exam preparation. Now, I know many of you have probably experienced both types of learning, especially over the past few years. Maybe you've been in traditional classrooms for most of your education, but then had to switch to online learning. Or perhaps you've chosen online courses to improve your English or learn new skills. Today, we're going to look at both sides of this debate and help you understand the advantages and challenges of each approach. And speaking of understanding, my good friend Tom will be joining us at the end of today's episode to review some really useful vocabulary that we'll be using throughout our discussion. Tom has a great way of breaking down these words and phrases so they stick in your memory, so make sure you stay tuned for that. But first, let me start with a question that might sound familiar to you. Have you ever been in the middle of an online class, maybe an English lesson, and suddenly your internet connection drops? Or maybe you're trying to ask the teacher a question, but you can't figure out how to unmute yourself. At the same time, have you ever sat in a traditional classroom, wishing you could replay what the teacher just said? Or pause the lesson to look up a word you didn't understand? These little moments perfectly capture the ongoing debate about which type of learning is truly better. And you know what? After talking to hundreds of English learners over the years, I've realized that the answer isn't as simple as we might think. Let me tell you about two students I know. First, there's Maria, a working mother from Brazil. She's been trying to improve her English for years, but with a full-time job and two young children, finding time to attend traditional classes was nearly impossible. The nearest English school was an hour away from her home, and the classes were always scheduled during times when she needed to be with her kids. Then online learning became more popular and accessible. Suddenly, Maria could take English lessons from her living room after her children went to bed. She could pause the video when one of her kids needed something, and she could replay difficult explanations until she understood them completely. For Maria, online learning was a game changer. It gave her the flexibility she needed to finally make real progress with her English. Now, let me tell you about Carlos, a university student from Mexico. Carlos had been taking online English courses for about 6 months, and while he was learning, he felt like something was missing. He could understand the grammar explanations, he could complete the exercises, but when it came to actually speaking English with other people, he felt completely lost. He realized that he needed more interaction, more immediate feedback, and more opportunities to practice speaking in real time. So Carlos enrolled in a traditional English class at a local language school. Immediately, he noticed the difference. He could ask questions and get immediate answers. He could practice conversations with other students. He could see the teacher's facial expressions and body language, which helped him understand not just what was being said, but how it was being said. For Carlos, the traditional classroom provided something that online learning couldn't: genuine human interaction and immediate personalized feedback. These two stories show us something important. Both traditional classroom learning and online learning have their place, and which one is better often depends on the individual learner and their specific circumstances. Let's start by looking at the advantages of traditional classroom learning. One of the biggest benefits is immediate interaction. When you're sitting in a classroom with a teacher and other students, you can ask questions the moment you don't understand something. You don't have to wait for an email response or schedule a separate meeting. The teacher can see your confused expression and explain something differently right away. And this immediate feedback is incredibly valuable for language learning. When you're practicing pronunciation, for example, your teacher can correct you instantly. They can show you how to position your mouth or demonstrate the difference between similar sounds. This kind of real-time correction is much harder to achieve in online settings. Traditional classrooms also provide what we call a structured environment. When you go to a physical classroom, you're entering a space that's designed for learning. There are fewer distractions than you might have at home. Your phone might be put away. Your family members aren't interrupting. And you're surrounded by other people who are there for the same purpose, to learn. Another huge advantage of traditional classrooms is social learning. Humans are naturally social creatures, and we often learn better when we're learning alongside other people. In a traditional classroom, you can work in pairs or small groups, participate in discussions, and learn from your classmates' questions and mistakes. You might discover that another student has the same confusion you do, or you might learn something new from how they approach a problem. The accountability factor is also important. When you have to show up to a physical classroom at a specific time, you're more likely to actually attend and participate. It's easier to skip an online lesson. You might tell yourself you'll watch it later, but later never comes. With traditional classes, you've made a commitment to be there, and that commitment helps ensure you actually follow through with your learning. However, traditional classroom learning also has some significant disadvantages. The biggest one is probably inflexibility. Classes happen at specific times and specific places. If you work unusual hours, have family responsibilities, or live far from educational institutions, this can be a real barrier. You might miss classes due to work commitments, illness, or transportation problems. One of the biggest Traditional classes also follow a fixed pace. The teacher has to move at a speed that works for the majority of students, but this might be too fast for some and too slow for others. If you're a quick learner, you might feel bored waiting for others to catch up. If you need more time to understand concepts, you might feel pressured to move on before you're ready. Cost can also be a factor. Traditional classes often require you to travel to a specific location, which means transportation costs and time. The classes themselves might be more expensive because of the overhead costs of maintaining physical classroom spaces. Now let's look at online learning and its advantages. The biggest benefit that most people mention is flexibility. You can learn whenever you want, wherever you are. Whether you're an early bird who likes to study at 6 a.m. or a night owl who prefers learning at midnight, online courses can accommodate your schedule. This flexibility is particularly valuable for working adults or people with family responsibilities. You don't have to arrange childcare or take time off work to attend classes. You can fit learning into your existing schedule rather than having to reorganize your entire life around class times. Online learning also offers what we call self-paced learning. If you don't understand something, you can replay the explanation as many times as you need. If you're already familiar with a topic, you can skip ahead. You have control over your learning speed, which can be much more efficient than the one-size-fits-all approach of traditional classrooms. Another advantage is accessibility. Online learning can reach people in remote areas who might not have access to quality educational institutions. It can also be more affordable since there are no physical facilities to maintain, and classes can accommodate unlimited numbers of students. Online learning also offers incredible variety. You can access courses from teachers and institutions all around the world. You're not limited to what's available in your local area. If you want to learn British English pronunciation, you can find a teacher from London. If you're interested in American Business English, you can take a course from a professor in New York. But online learning has its challenges too. The biggest one is often lack of motivation and discipline. When you're learning alone at home, it's easy to get distracted. Your family might interrupt you. You might be tempted to check social media, or you might simply lose focus without the structure and social pressure of a traditional classroom. Technical issues can also be frustrating. Internet connectivity problems, software glitches, or unfamiliarity with online platforms can interfere with your learning. Some people, particularly older learners, might find the technology itself to be a barrier. The lack of immediate personal interaction is another significant drawback. While some online courses offer live sessions or chat features, it's still not quite the same as face-to-face communication. You might miss subtle cues like body language or tone of voice that help with understanding. For language learners especially, this reduced human interaction can be a real limitation. Another challenge is what we call the isolation factor. Learning can be a lonely experience when you're doing it entirely online. You don't have classmates to study with, share experiences with, or learn from. This social aspect of learning is important for many people's motivation and enjoyment. So, which approach is better? Well, the honest answer is that it depends on you as an individual learner. Some people thrive in the structured, social environment of traditional classrooms. Others prefer the flexibility and self-paced nature of online learning. And increasingly, many people are finding that a combination of both approaches works best for them. This combination approach is sometimes called blended learning or hybrid learning. You might take online courses for the flexibility and variety they offer, but also attend occasional in-person classes or conversation groups for the social interaction and immediate feedback. Or you might follow an online curriculum but study with a group of friends or family members to add a social element. When deciding which approach is right for you, consider your learning style, your schedule, your goals, and your personal preferences. Are you self-motivated or do you need external structure? Do you learn better alone or with others? Do you need flexibility or do you prefer routine? Are you comfortable with technology or do you prefer more traditional methods? Also, think about what you're trying to learn. Some subjects might be better suited to online learning. For example, you might be able to learn grammar rules effectively through online exercises and explanations. But other skills, like pronunciation or conversation, might benefit more from in-person instruction and practice. The truth is, both traditional classroom learning and online learning have evolved significantly in recent years. Traditional classrooms now often incorporate technology and online resources, while online learning platforms are finding new ways to create interaction and community among learners. As we look to the future, I think we'll see even more innovation in both areas. Traditional classrooms will continue to integrate digital tools to enhance learning, while online platforms will develop better ways to create meaningful interaction and personalized feedback. For you as an English learner, my advice is to try both approaches if possible. See what works best for your learning style, your schedule, and your goals. Don't be afraid to mix and match. You might find that online courses work great for building your vocabulary and grammar knowledge, while in-person conversation classes help you develop your speaking confidence. Remember, the best learning approach is the one that you'll actually stick with and that helps you make progress toward your goals. Whether that's in a traditional classroom, online, or some combination of both, what matters most is that you keep learning and improving. Before I hand things over to Tom for our vocabulary review, let me ask you a few questions to help you think about your own learning preferences. First, thinking about your own experience, have you tried both traditional classroom learning and online learning? Which did you prefer and why? Second, what are the biggest challenges you face in your English learning journey? Do you think a traditional classroom or online learning approach would be better for addressing those challenges. Third, if you could design the perfect English learning experience for yourself, what would it look like? Would it be entirely online, entirely in person, or a combination of both? And finally, what's one thing you learned from today's discussion that might influence how you approach your English learning in the future? All right, now I'm going to hand things over to my friend Tom, who's going to help us review some of the key vocabulary we've used in today's discussion. Tom, take it away.
Hey everyone, it's Tom here, and I'm excited to go through some really useful words from today's discussion with you. These are words that you'll definitely encounter in IELTS and in everyday conversations about education. So let's dive right in. Let's start with a word that's absolutely everywhere these days, flexibility. Now, flexibility means the ability to change or adapt easily to different situations. When we talk about online learning having flexibility, we mean you can adjust when and where you study based on your needs. Here's a great example. The flexibility of online courses allows working parents to study after their children go to bed. Let me hear you say that with me. The flexibility of online courses allows working parents to study after their children go to bed. One more time. The flexibility of online courses allows working parents to study after their children go to bed. Perfect. Now, this connects beautifully to our next word, self-pacing. When something is self-pacing, it means you can control the speed at which you do it. It's like being the driver of your own learning car. You decide when to speed up, when to slow down, and when to take breaks. For example, self-paced learning means you can spend extra time on difficult topics without holding back other students. Let's practice this together. Self-paced learning means you can spend extra time on difficult topics without holding back other students. And again, self-paced learning means you can spend extra time on difficult topics without holding back other students. Excellent. Here's another word that's crucial for understanding education today: interaction. Interaction is the process of communicating and working together with other people. Think of it as the back and forth conversation and connection between people. In traditional classrooms, there's lots of face-to-face interaction between students and teachers. Here's how we might use it. Many students miss the personal interaction they get in traditional classrooms when they switch to online learning. Say it with me. Many students miss the personal interaction they get in traditional classrooms when they switch to online learning. Once more, many students miss the personal interaction they get in traditional classrooms when they switch to online learning. Well done. Let's talk about accountability. This is such an important concept. Accountability means being responsible for your actions and having to answer for them. When you're accountable, you can't just disappear or make excuses. You have to show up and do what you promised. Traditional classes often provide more accountability because you have to physically attend. Here's an example. The accountability of attending regular classes helps many students stay motivated and consistent with their studies. Let's practice. The accountability of attending regular classes helps many students stay motivated and consistent with their studies. One more time. The accountability of attending regular classes helps many students stay motivated and consistent with their studies. Fantastic. Finally, let's look at blended learning. This is a newer term that's becoming really popular. Blended learning means combining traditional classroom teaching with online learning methods. It's like getting the best of both worlds: the personal touch of in-person classes mixed with the convenience of online resources. For instance, many universities now offer blended learning programs that combine weekly classroom sessions with online assignments and resource. Practice with me. Many universities now offer blended learning programs that combine weekly classroom sessions with online assignments and resources. And again, many universities now offer blended learning programs that combine weekly classroom sessions with online assignments and resources. Brilliant. These words will serve you really well, not just in IELTS, but in any conversation about education and learning. Keep using them. and they'll become natural parts of your vocabulary.
Thanks so much, Tom. Those vocabulary explanations were fantastic, and I know our listeners really appreciate the way you break things down and give us those practice opportunities. Well, everyone, that brings us to the end of today's exploration of traditional classroom versus online learning. I hope this discussion has given you some new perspectives to think about and maybe helped you reflect on your own learning preferences and experiences. Remember, there's no universally right answer to which type of learning is better. The best approach is the one that works for you, fits your lifestyle, and helps you achieve your goals. Don't be afraid to experiment with different methods and find your own perfect combination. Thank you so much for joining me today on English as a Second Language. I'm David, and it's always a pleasure to spend this time exploring important topics with you. Keep practicing, keep learning, and remember that every step you take is bringing you closer to your English goals. I'll be back next week with another episode in our IELTS series. Until then, take care and keep up the great work.